An 18-year-old boy named Jack Miller sat in the cockpit of a commercial aircraft, and what he did next would change aviation history forever. The entire world would watch in disbelief as this teenager made decisions that left experienced pilots speechless. This is the story of courage, quick thinking, and a moment that proved age means nothing when lives hang in the balance. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Jack Miller was not supposed to be in that cockpit. He was supposed to be celebrating his 18th birthday with friends back in Seattle. Instead, he found himself on Flight 227, heading from Los Angeles to Tokyo, sitting in seat 3 for a by the window. Jack had always been fascinated by planes. Since he was 5 years old, he would spend hours at the airport with his father, watching aircraft take off and land. His father was a mechanic who worked on small planes, and Jack had learned everything he could about aviation. He had taken flying lessons since he turned 16, accumulating over 200 hours of flight time in small aircraft. But commercial jets were a completely different world. They were massive, complex machines that required years of training to operate. Jack respected that boundary. He knew his place, but fate had other plans for him that day. The flight had been smooth for the first 3 hours. Jack was reading a book about aerodynamics when he noticed something unusual. The plane suddenly dropped altitude, not dramatically, but enough to make passengers gasp and grip their armrests. The seatbelt sign came on immediately. A flight attendant rushed past his seat, her face tight with concern. Jack watched her disappear behind the cockpit door. Minutes passed. The plane leveled out, but something felt wrong. The engine sounded different to Jack's trained ear. There was a subtle change in pitch that most passengers would never notice. But Jack noticed. He had spent countless hours listening to engine sounds with his father. This was not normal. Then came an announcement that made everyone's blood run cold. A flight attendant's voice, shaking slightly, came over the intercom. Both pilots had fallen ill. They needed anyone with flight experience to come forward immediately. The cabin erupted in worried chatter. People looked around frantically. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. His legs felt weak, but he moved forward anyway. A flight attendant stopped him. She looked at his young face with doubt. Jack explained quickly. 200 hours of flight time. Ground school completed. He knew aircraft systems. He understood navigation. The attendant hesitated for only a moment before rushing him to the cockpit. What Jack saw inside made his stomach drop. The captain was slumped over the controls, unconscious. The first officer was barely coherent, struggling to keep his eyes open. Later, investigations would reveal they had both eaten contaminated food before the flight. But in that moment, Jack did not have time to think about causes. He had to act. The first officer looked at Jack with desperate eyes. He managed to whisper instructions before losing consciousness completely. Jack slid into the captain's seat. His hands trembled as they touched the controls. This was nothing like the small Cessna he was used to flying. The instrument panel looked like something from a spaceship. Hundreds of buttons, switches, screens, and indicators surrounded him. The autopilot was on, but the plane had descended to 30,000 feet and was still dropping. Something was wrong with the system. Jack took a deep breath. He remembered what his father always told him. Break big problems into small steps. First, stabilize the aircraft. He checked the altitude indicator. 28,000 feet and descending. He scanned the instruments and found the altitude selector. The autopilot was set to descend to 20,000 feet. Why? Jack looked at the fuel gauges. His heart sank. The plane was burning fuel faster than it should. One of the engines was running hot. The temperature gauge showed readings in the red zone. Jack had to make a decision: continue to Tokyo on 3 engines and risk the overheating engine catching fire, or divert to the nearest airport. He grabbed the radio headset. His voice cracked as he spoke. "This is Flight 227. We have an emergency situation. Both pilots are incapacitated. I am an 18-year-old passenger with limited flight experience. I need immediate assistance." The response came quickly. Air traffic control in Honolulu answered. They could hear the fear in Jack's voice, but they also heard something else: determination. They asked for his experience level. Jack told them everything. 200 hours. Single-engine aircraft only. Never flown a jet. Never landed anything bigger than a 4-seater Cessna. There was a pause on the other end. Then a calm voice came through. "Jack, my name is Captain Sarah Chen. I am a retired commercial pilot, and I am going to talk you through this. You can do this. Trust yourself and trust me." Captain Chen became Jack's lifeline. She had been visiting the Honolulu control tower when the emergency call came in. She immediately took over communications. She asked Jack to describe everything he saw on the instruments. Jack went through each gauge, each indicator, each warning light. Captain Chen listened carefully. Then she gave her assessment. The number 3 engine was failing. Jack needed to shut it down before it caused more damage. She walked him through the shutdown procedure step by step. Jack's hands moved across the controls, flipping switches and pressing buttons as instructed. The engine powered down. The plane shuddered slightly, but stabilized. Now came the hard part. Jack had to fly this massive aircraft manually. The autopilot was malfunctioning and could not be trusted. Captain Chen asked Jack about his flight training. Had he practiced instrument flying? Yes. Had he performed emergency landings? Yes, but only in small planes. Had he ever experienced engine failure? Once, during training. Good, Captain Chen said. You have the skills. Now you just need to scale them up. She explained that flying a commercial jet was not fundamentally different from flying a small plane. The principles were the same. The controls just required more finesse and planning. Jack listened to every word. He gripped the yoke and felt the weight of the aircraft respond to his touch. 247 passengers were behind him. Their lives were in his hands. Captain Chen guided Jack through a turn toward Honolulu International Airport, the nearest safe landing spot. Jack had to descend from 28,000 feet to sea level. He had to reduce speed without stalling. He had to configure the aircraft for landing, and he had to do all of this without being able to see outside clearly because it was night and they were over the ocean. The instrument panel became his entire world. Altimeter, airspeed indicator, vertical speed indicator, heading indicator. Jack called out readings to Captain Chen. She confirmed each one and gave him the next instruction. Reduce throttle, begin descent at 1,500 feet per minute. Extend flaps to position 5. Jack's training kicked in. Muscle memory took over. His hands moved with growing confidence. But then a new problem emerged. The weather around Honolulu was deteriorating. Strong crosswinds were hitting the airport. Gusts up to 40 knots. Landing in those conditions was difficult even for experienced pilots. For Jack, it could be impossible. Captain Chen did not sugarcoat it. "Jack, this is going to be the hardest thing you have ever done. But I believe you can do it. Focus on the runway. Trust your instruments. Do not overthink it." Jack nodded, even though no one could see him. Sweat dripped down his face. His shirt was soaked through, but his hands were steady on the controls. The descent continued. 20,000 feet. 15,000. 10,000. Jack could see lights below now. The island of Oahu spread out beneath him like a scattered constellation. Honolulu International Airport was lit up bright. Emergency vehicles were already positioning themselves along the runway. Fire trucks, ambulances, rescue teams. Everyone was preparing for the worst. Jack tried not to think about that. He focused on Captain Chen's voice. She was his anchor in the storm. She talked him through every step. Reduce speed to 200 knots. Extend landing gear. Jack pulled the gear lever. He felt a heavy thunk as the wheels locked into position. 3 green lights confirmed they were down. Flaps to position 15. Then position 30. The plane slowed further. It became more responsive to the controls, but also more sensitive to the wind. Jack could feel every gust buffeting the aircraft. 5,000 feet. The airport was directly ahead. Jack lined up with runway 8 left, the longest runway available. Captain Chen reminded him of the approach speed, 150 knots over the threshold. Jack adjusted the throttle carefully. 4,000 feet. 3,000. The plane was sinking toward the earth. Jack's eyes darted between the instruments and the view outside. The runway lights formed 2 perfect lines converging in the distance. 2,000 feet. 1,000. The wind hit hard from the left. The plane tilted. Jack corrected with the ailerons and rudder. His father's lessons echoed in his mind. Crosswind landings require coordination. Use the rudder to keep the nose straight. Use the ailerons to keep the wings level. Jack's feet danced on the pedals. His hands made constant tiny adjustments on the yoke. 500 feet. The plane was lined up perfectly. Jack reduced throttle further. The ground rushed up to meet them. Captain Chen's voice was calm and steady. "You are doing great, Jack. Hold it steady. Just a little more. 200 feet. 100 feet. 50 feet. Jack pulled back slightly on the yoke. The nose lifted. The main wheels touched the runway first. A slight bounce. Then they settled firmly on the concrete. Jack immediately deployed the thrust reversers and applied the brakes. The massive aircraft slowed. Slower, slower. It rolled down the runway as emergency vehicles raced alongside. Finally, the plane came to a complete stop. Jack sat frozen in the seat. His hands still gripped the controls. He had done it. He had landed a commercial aircraft with 247 passengers on board. Not a single person was injured. The cockpit door burst open. Paramedics rushed in to attend to the unconscious pilots. Flight attendants hugged each other and cried with relief. And Jack just sat there, unable to process what had just happened. Captain Chen's voice came through the headset one last time. "Jack, you saved everyone on that plane. You are a hero. Welcome to aviation history." The aftermath was overwhelming. News crews from around the world descended on Honolulu. Jack's face was everywhere. television, newspapers, social media. Everyone wanted to know about the teenager who landed a commercial jet. Aviation experts analyzed what Jack had done. They were stunned by his composure and decision-making. Shutting down the failing engine was the right call. His approach and landing were nearly perfect. Some experienced pilots admitted they might not have handled the situation as well under the same pressure. Jack became an instant celebrity, but he remained humble. In every interview, he credited Captain Chen for guiding him. He credited his father for teaching him about aircraft. He credited his flight instructors for giving him solid fundamentals. He never claimed to be a hero. He said he just did what needed to be done. But the aviation community saw something special in Jack. Major airlines offered him scholarships for pilot training. Flight schools wanted him as a spokesperson. The Federal Aviation Administration fast-tracked his commercial pilot certification process. Jack's 18th birthday had turned into something he would never forget. The investigation into the incident revealed important safety issues. The contaminated food that poisoned both pilots led to new regulations about crew meals. Pilots could no longer eat the same food before or during flights. The malfunctioning autopilot was traced to a software glitch that affected multiple aircraft. It was fixed immediately across the entire fleet. And perhaps most importantly, the incident sparked a conversation about emergency preparedness. What if there had been no passengers with flight experience on board? Airlines began developing better protocols for such scenarios. They created training programs to help flight attendants handle basic aircraft controls in extreme emergencies. They improved communication systems between cockpits and ground control. Jack Miller's actions that night led to changes that would save lives for decades to come. But for Jack himself, the experience changed his perspective on life. He realized that preparation meets opportunity in unexpected ways. All those hours he spent learning about planes, all those days at the airport with his father, all those flight lessons he saved up for, none of it seemed particularly important at the time. He was just following his passion. But when the moment came, that preparation saved 247 lives. Jack went on to become a commercial pilot. He finished his training in record time and was hired by a major airline before his 20th birthday. He became the youngest captain in the company's history at age 24. He never forgot that night over the Pacific Ocean. He never forgot the fear, the pressure, or the responsibility. And he never forgot Captain Chin's words. "You can do this. Trust yourself." Jack now speaks at aviation conferences around the world. He tells his story not to boast, but to inspire. He talks about the importance of training, preparation, and staying calm under pressure. He encourages young people to pursue their passions relentlessly because you never know when you might be called upon to use your skills. The pilots who were incapacitated that night both recovered fully. They met Jack months later and thanked him personally. They told him he was part of an exclusive club now, the club of people who truly understand what it means to hold lives in your hands at 40,000 feet. Jack's father was there too. He stood quietly in the background, tears in his eyes, proud beyond words. His son had taken everything he taught him and used it to perform a miracle. Today, Jack Miller is still flying. He is now 32 years old and has logged over 15,000 flight hours. He has flown millions of passengers safely to their destinations. But everyone who knows his story remembers that one night when an 18-year-old boy did what seemed impossible. When training, courage, and guidance came together in the most extraordinary way. when age was just a number and skill was all that mattered. Jack's story reminds us that heroes do not always wear capes or uniforms. Sometimes they are just regular people who happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right preparation. Sometimes they are teenagers who listened to their fathers and followed their dreams. Sometimes they are young people who refused to panic when the world was falling apart around them. Jack Miller shocked every pilot in the world, not because he was exceptional in some supernatural way. He shocked them because he proved that with proper training, clear guidance, and unwavering determination, even the most daunting challenges can be overcome. His story is not just about landing a plane. It is about rising to meet the moment when everything depends on you. It is about trusting yourself even when you have every reason to doubt. It is about the power of preparation and the importance of mentors who believe in you. That night changed aviation forever, but more importantly, it showed the world what young people are capable of when given the chance to shine. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. For more videos like this,